I am Barton George from the We Love Open Source Studios, and I'm here today with Itamar. How are you doing, Itamar?
I'm doing great. Such a great event that we're recording from.
Yeah, I love this. This is one of my favorites, All Things Open, and I'm with the All Things Open team, so I might be a bit biased. So why don't we start with an introduction? Who are you? Why are you here?
Great. I'm Itamar Friedman, the CEO and co-founder of Qodo. At Qodo, we are one of the leading AI code review solution out there. We're helping companies shifting from vibe coding to viable coding, introducing AI into the quality aspect of software development lifecycle, basically standardizing quality. No matter how you generate the code, human, AI, we're here to help to make sure that you don't have like bad code eventually.
So I saw that where you're in your bio that code integrity space, the emerging code integrity space. What is that?
Yeah, I love that question. So a lot of people call it like one subfield is code review, another is security, another is quality. And the way we think about it is that there's a huge opportunity to like merge these like topics into one holistic solution. And if we try to put it as a roof like terminology, we call it integrity. Like how do you verify your code is maintained? Highly maintainable. Mm-hmm. It's secured. It's according to your standards. That's a quality, for example. And how do you help with the process itself? For example, the code review process. Mm-hmm. I think like this is similar to some extent, similar to how AI helped with changing how we generate, how we write code. Mm-hmm. We could take a new like approach of how we verify the integrity as a whole. So that's what we call it this way.
So when you think of code review, quality standards, it sounds like you've already talked about this, but what excites you, would you say, about these areas?
Yeah, so I'm really excited, like all of us, about vibe coding. But one of the issues that, A, you have thousands of lines of code that is hard to review one by one and also as a whole. And B, you have like a pile of PRs open for you waiting for review. So for me, the most exciting practical like usage of AI today, and obviously I'm biased as Qodo, as the AI code review solution out there, is to empower dev teams to standardize quality at that part. But looking forward, by the way, we call that, the red team, the team that's in charge of verifying that what we do is actually according to what we wanted to, high integrity, etc. And the blue teams are more the code generation teams. And what's exciting for me in the future is actually the shift left and shift right, code review, code quality, where you can actually get those high quality suggestions that are learned from the practices that are discussed in the PR discussions, etc. How do you pull the standards from PR discussions, from Slack discussions, from architecture, from documents, and provide those suggestions as you code? By the way, AI to AI communication and AI to developer, and that mix of blue and red is purple, and that's one of the reasons for our
the purple shirt.
The purple shirt.
I like it.
Like Qodo's like main color.
So yeah, it sounds like you're pulling a lot of information from a lot of streams and then putting them into one. So obviously you're passionate about code review. How did you get interested in it? Did you get some code that went bad and you got stung by it, or?
Oh wow, two. One, back in the days, like 20 years ago. Yeah, I'm an old model. I was using machine learning for verification of hardware.
Okay.
And interestingly, in hardware, the specification is bytes in, bytes out. So we could use traditional machine learning in a company like NVIDIA. My company I worked in was sold to NVIDIA to automate verification. It was amazing. But during like years of moving into software, I realized that the specification for software is very different by nature. It's not bytes in, bytes out. It's user story in, user interface out. Human interfaces, less machine, and that's where LLM and AI need to catch up. And thanks to LLM, so I was always like waiting for that moment, and etc. And the second thing is that like my master etc. is in AI, and I saw like that 2021, 2022 moments where it became really clear that like at least for those that are developing machine learning,
right,
that AI is going to generate most of the content in the world, and especially code, because there is a formal, language, and that got me a bit like almost scared, like that like how do we avoid that catastrophic moment 5 years from now, where every other day we have like software stop working for fundamental services, and like these 2 points together brought to the birth of Qodo 2-3 months BC before ChatGPT.
Oh, that's how we're going to delineate its time going forward.
Yeah.
So we already started talking about AI. We started talking about devs. How do you think AI is going to, what's already affecting devs, but how is it doing it? And will AI replace devs? Will developers go away?
Yeah, I'll start with the end. I think not in the near term future. Like I don't want some of the CEOs of the foundation labs, they claim that by the end of 2025, like no more developers. Now it's like by 2026, 90% of code is going to be written by AI. By the way, I think originally say 2025. And I think like we're learning that software development is much more complicated than we thought, or more accurately, those that are developing ML maybe were a bit too, optimistic about it. While if you're doing heavy duty software, you're in charge of financial institutions, software like transportation, etc. There's so many like small edge cases and happy paths, etc. that needs to be solved. That it's very clear that the path in the next few years is being empowered by AI, maybe even doing 10x or 100x or even more efficiency, but you still need those professional developers and that are going to herd the AI agents and taking care of standards, etc. So eventually I think that developers, let's say profession is going to evolve like it was evolved throughout the years. Like we are doing very different development before and after cloud, which took a few years to mature, right? So right now I think like we're going to see developers much more on the planning, on the architecture, on the herding agents, giving them the best practice and making sure that standards being applied, teaching via AI junior developers to try to use AI tools, etc. Going to change a lot, this at least in the near future. Now predicting 10, 15 years ahead is like kind of like harder.
Anyone who says they can is lying.
Yeah, and I do think like a moral law, like we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short term. Sorry, we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short term, which is what we just spoke about.
Right.
But underestimate in the long term.
Yeah.
And that's where like 10, 15 years things could be like a little bit crazy, but still I think developers are going to be around.
So yeah, now you've sort of touched on this, but how specifically will AI be used by developers? How would you see it today and then going ahead?
Yeah, like it started, LLMs are really good in spitting code. So it's not by chance that it started with autocomplete, right? And then they were better in like doing like larger question and answering. And that's why like Gen 2.0 was like a chat interface in the IDE. And that requires imagination to go into agentic chat, because LLMs could actually complete tasks, small tasks, like 5-minute tasks or so. And that's why you saw like the birth of IDE forks and things like that. And I think the like as we go to 2026, you would see AI LLMs being able to generate taking larger tasks. So that's like very visible and on the table. Meanwhile, there's a new trend of using AI, not necessarily directly LLM, but AI empowered systems to standardize quality. Obviously, again, shameless plug, that's where Qodo is leading. That's a very different creature. The first one is like giving the right context and letting LLM complete the task. And LLMs, it's coming from the LLM to the agentic world. The standardizing quality is actually coming from the system way of thinking. Let's have a set of rules and check that they are verified. When are they verified and when are they not? Let's learn what are the best practices and when are they being used and when not. That's like a second brain for the engineering team. So I think like where we're going to see AI evolving in the next half year is that developers are going to use AI somewhat as a second as a team member of a new kind, a second brain, where you can ask questions. You're still going to like more on the code base, on the standards, ask it to verify your quality, etc. And it's not necessarily happening in the IDE, it's happening in your Git and your workflows, doing root code analysis with you. So bottom line TLDR, AI across the SDLC, first as stateless, Gen 3.0, 4.0, stateless agents. And 4.0, 5.0 is like with a second brain learning over time. And that's already like a full team member, which is very far than Gen 1.0 completing my line of code.
And so would you say, one thing I've heard is AI as a junior developer, right? So somebody who's going and doing the lower level work, higher level work, I don't know, depends on where you look at it. Would you say that's a good analogy for right now, or?
Yes and no. Like, I think like what's good about like kids and juniors, etc., that they do have a brain and it's learning over time, etc. And I think like Gen 1.0 and 2.0, like the chat and the autocomplete, we're still like something more like a stateless creature that just have some knowledge, never learning, just spitting the next line of code. And I think juniors, with all respect, actually I trust them more. Like at least the A plus, like the A player. Juniors. They're very adaptive and learning. The LLMs might be more knowledgeable, but the juniors will adapt more, will learn quicker, like faster. And I think like what's happening right now is that the AI solutions are becoming more stateful, and now they're becoming junior. Only now, I claim, they're becoming junior developers where they have a bit more knowledge, a more generic, like worldwide knowledge, and probably in a year or two, they're actually going to be senior developers with some different properties about where they're good and bad at. So yes, I do think this is the right path to think about it. I just think that practically we're a bit less hype-oriented than other companies. So I'm claiming that the junior only came now to some extent. They're just maybe very, very hard-working juniors.
So speaking of that analogy, if we take it to the real world, what about real junior coders? How do they become senior coders in an AI world? So if you were starting today and just out of school and looking to code, how would you improve your skill set as you went forward if AI is doing a lot of this?
Awesome question. So first, be excited, not scared. Like I claim that this is very different, evolution, but still there were more of these, and engineering and development, and it's gonna keep being a thing. So just like adopt and adapt and etc. So that's number one. I think that like over time, like basically there's going to be like a totally new profession of how you work with AI agent. I think the developer in big organization are actually those that are learning how to use AI is growing and recruiting more, and those that are not are actually reducing. So think about this one. Now about skills, like start with simple projects, use AI there, but care about the quality. Don't just vibe code and say, oh, it works. Now use AI to try to understand why it works. For example, go and fetch a relevant, very heavy-duty open source project that is similar to what you just vibe code, and ask the AI to find the similarities of what is similar, what's not, and try to explain. Use that like AI also to learn and not just to vibe code. I heard two different stories right now. One, senior developer coming to a pull request and saying, oh my God, I'm quite clear that this was vibe coded, no knowledge behind what's working, what's not. I gave feedback, that junior took that feedback and pushed it to AI to fix it. Oh, why did I need that junior?
This is a real junior now?
Yeah. Okay. Why do I need that junior? The senior is saying, like, I can do a background agent. That's scenario number one. The second scenario, oh my God, there's other scenarios. Oh my God, this is vibe coded. I gave a feedback to that junior. Now that junior took that prompt from the senior engineer and decided, I'm going to learn. I can learn by asking people, by asking AI, and came back with something that is much more than I just used that feedback to prompt. And that's where junior developers must be, like their mindset. Using AI to learn more, using AI to adopt and adapt.
Yeah, so you already hit the one of the questions I was going to ask next, which is what advice would you give to people starting out? So you did that one. So one phrase I've heard is not vibe coding, but agentic coding. Is that, what do you think of that sort of phraseology? In other words, it's going to evolve from vibe coding to agentic coding. And you can describe that however you, define that however you want.
Yeah. Vibe coding, I think the property, like what people are excited about, is it puts the developer goal of flow. Like, while if you think about test-driven development, the main goal was accuracy.
Right.
Spec-driven development is business requirement being met. For vibe coding is like the main goal is flow of the engineering workflow. It's really, really fun and cool, and I can get more code being generated quickly. Notice I didn't say finishing high quality features necessarily. And I think that, like, I agree that, going agentic coding, for example, is somewhat continuation of agentic feels flowish, etc. So it resonates with me, but I think that that's really good for proof of value, proof of concept, like checking that the concept of the feature you want to develop makes sense. But eventually, if you're developing software that you care about, I think we need another term. Now, it could be not as buzzy and viral as from vibe coding to agentic coding, because I think, by the way, vibe coding was also agentic something. So, for example, at Qodo, we think about viable coding. Okay, like how can we move to keep working with flows, but making reliable. And I think like just the word agentic is not necessarily that. Now, viable coding maybe is not as like cool term like agent. So agentic coding, so maybe, who knows, maybe agentic coding will be the one that will catch. But I don't know. This month I saw many people saying rest in peace vibe coding, even those that actually invented that term. So I think like agentic coding might be a thing for a while, but I don't think it will survive because it's not viable.
Okay. So you talk about MVCs, minimum viable coding. Do you talk about that?
Oh, that's really cool. I think vibe coding and agentic coding as a concept, not with all the wrappers around it, is exactly really good for that. Things like a POV MVPs that we would want to check as alpha, alpha software before beta and GA are now can be done from 2x to 50x faster. But we want to make it beta and GA, general availability, especially if it's heavy duty software with personal information involved, transactions, transport, things that we care about, then probably like vibe coding is not per se what you want to pursue.
Cool. I had so many other questions I could ask, but it's that time in the show where we're doing the Hot Fix Minute. So I sort of mentioned this before, but I didn't give you the answer. So I have 8 questions. I'm going to give you 3 spelling doesn't count. You'll have either 3 to choose from, sometimes 2, but why don't we get kicked off here? Linux, Mac, or Windows?
Mac.
Okay. Books, movies, or podcasts?
Wow. Hard between podcasts and books. I would choose podcast.
All right. Pizza, salad, or tacos?
Pizza.
All right. Rock, country, or hip hop?
Rock.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or stargazing?
Oh, that's another hard one. Stargazing.
Yes, all right, I like that. Not so political as Star Wars versus Star Trek. Yeah. Android or iPhone?
I just, after 10 years in Android, moved to iPhone, but still Android.
Interesting. Okay, good. I shouldn't add an editorial in there. You can use whatever phone, mobile OS you want. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, anything else you want to throw in there?
By the way, this is the hardest from all, because each one of them is good in a different aspect, but I have to choose, right?
It's like you love all your children equally?
No, I love the model. I like the models, but what I care is efficiency, and I think actually cocktail of these, if you don't force me answering, I would say that each one has a very different property for thinking on complex planning or just getting shit done, for coding or reviewing other models' work without giving names that actually each one of the models are better by far for each one of these tasks, for example. So cocktail.
Okay. And then last but not least, the future of AI, would you describe it as, characterize it as society will benefit, or I'd rather not say the chatbots may be listening?
No, the benefit for sure. I'm in a position here, if I may offer. Usually I don't talk about it because I don't want to sound megalomaniac, but Qodo, we are all about standardizing quality. Behind it are soft values that we help verify for different organizations. And the vision of that, I don't mention, usually state only the mission, is actually harness AI for the good when doing software development, because as AI managed to, if you think about artificial super intelligent creature, for sure it is going to generate software as it goes, as it operates in the world, and Qodo is going to help with making sure it doesn't sidetrack.
So glass is half full.
So we're going to help with that.
Okay, I love it. All right, Itamar Friedman, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.